So now we'll go ahead and look at some posters and just talk about them. So in this poster, this is for a play, and the designer was probably given these photographs. So often when you're designing for something like a play, they will have a photographer that takes a bunch of photos of the actors, and then you'll be given these photographs and you'll be able to use them in any way you want in the layout. And so the designer was really playful with the scale here, taking the woman's face and body and kind of making it large, really kind of intensifying the depth. And then you can see that it's just a really subtle two-color design. There's gray and black and orange here. There's another great design. I love this bright pink, kind of a captivating photo. This man with his eyes closed. Then you have the text kind of bleeding to the edge here, and then you have David Mamet in the D here, just kind of being used as a frame. So you see how the pink is kind of balancing the design. It's also adding contrast and energy. This was a poster for a jazz festival, and you can see that the intended audience was actually people who are really interested in jazz. So the idea behind the design was they wanted to get a feeling of jazz, to kind of make it very playful, somewhat chaotic, improvisational. And here's another example. You see these actual piano keys in the background here, and those letters are just kind of dancing with each other. Very playful, trying to make us both feel the music as we look at the design. This is a series of posters, and we'll kind of go through a few of them here. So you see the name of the design firm here on the side, and then there's just very kind of well thought out, careful layout of text. And so it probably took them a long time to kind of line this up so precisely here at this angle. There's kind of a complementary color scheme going on with the blue and the red, and then a little bit of yellow and white added in. And you can see this kind of playful use of scale here. And what you can do in Illustrator is you can actually take letters and you can turn them into outlines, and then you can manipulate them and morph them and turn them into these interesting shapes. And that's probably what happened here. Another poster in this series, you can see that there's a consistency with where the name of the firm is being placed. And there's this very kind of beautiful visual flow going on with the black and white just kind of seamlessly interacting here. And we'll go on here to this very graffiti, illustrative design. And what's great about it is all the information is kind of put here on these walls in the background space. So it's really using that space in a very playful way. This is Baby Doll, another play, and you can see that there's this kind of captivating, intriguing black and white image combined with this orange text. And they're really kind of being playful with the font here and outlining it in white, making it kind of have that almost kid feel of playfulness. And this is all done on a grid here with this very straight line of the text going down the side here. Another example of an illustration, and you can see this kind of really fun battle royale text up here, and then this very sophisticated text on the edges. There's kind of a very balanced feel with this design. There's text all along the edges here, and then you have this kind of real tension between these two illustrated characters in the middle. Another play, The House of Bernarda Alba. You can see color, big grayscale image. So very common theme here. You see that posters often have a very captivating grayscale image combined with kind of a bright, intense color for the text. And it actually makes the design very sophisticated, but you get a lot of content in there as well. The other thing you'll notice with these designs is that there's minimal text going on. There's not a lot of text. Basically with a poster, you want to get the information out there quickly. You want to get people interested and excited and give them the necessary information. If you put too much text in, it's just going to overwhelm the design. So this is very playful. This is a grid, obviously a grid pattern going on. There's all these kind of really interesting photographs in the background, bright red text. Another one, this feels very dark and kind of foreboding here with this very dark figure with his hands out. It's kind of lightened up with the color scheme. It's actually not the color scheme I would have chose. It's kind of interesting, but it gives it kind of this lighter feel because of the green and the blue. This was Cyrano, and the thing with Cyrano was he had a giant nose, so they really wanted to profile the nose here, make it very much the focal point in the image. And then they created a monotone image. And then what's really beautiful about this design is just the sophistication of the type layout. You can see it's all done on a grid here. Everything's lining up. There's these columns of text. There's actually quite a bit of text in this design, but they laid it out so beautifully that it's not overwhelming. It's very digestible. So there's certain things you might read first and then second and third. And then when you got down to these columns here, which are kind of the, I think they're just the names of the people in the play, you don't necessarily have to read them, but they're there. You can see them if you get close enough. This was a student's design, and just kind of showing how this in here, how you can be playful with text and you can pull down one side of it. So always think about what can be done, how can you unify, how can you create and merge the graphic with the text, or perhaps the text is the graphic. This was a musician or a musical band, and you can see the information here. The name, it's very clever, the suit, and the time. This is very surrealistic. It's a good example of kind of a surrealism being used in modern design with the image of the man and the horse kind of combined together. Very simple, but beautifully done. And here's another illustrative design where you have these two little figures and this really hand-drawn, almost kind of sloppy text, but it's kind of fun, and the scale of it makes it really a primary focal point. And I love how the illustrative characters are kind of interacting with this text here. High School Musical. So basically what they would do with something like this is they'd take out the background completely. So it's obviously a Photoshop job where they would take the figures and they'd cut them out as precisely as they could. And then they're kind of adding in this text here. And there's a ton of text in this paragraph, but it's kind of so compact and placed in such a way that it doesn't overwhelm. Tristan and Isolde. These are kind of the same character, the two different versions of the same man, and you can see once again this grayscale kind of captivating photo with bright color in the text to create contrast and focal point and emphasis. Another example of surrealism with this kind of creepy eye and this cone, and so yeah, you can do a lot if you get good at Photoshop, and you can kind of do photo manipulation and change the scale of certain things in a photograph. It can be pretty interesting. And I like how the text is kind of almost mimicking the idea of sound here. A minute too late. Not about nightingales. And you can see how a monochromatic image can be pretty powerful, and especially when you pair it with, this is kind of a darker image, and then when you pair it with that bright white text, it really stands out and creates contrast, and also this visual hierarchy for the text. Power, another example of interesting crop here. I mean, it's so tight and there's so much going on with just this simple profile of the man and the ear, and then they kind of lightened it up with the color of the text. Singing in the Rain, tons of text in this design, and they had to lay it out in a way where it was digestible, so they created this block down here, 2 blocks on the side. It's kind of a fun stroke happening with this text up here, and I love how they like drew it on a path so it's not straight across. It kind of mimics the energy of the song. It's also a very complementary color scheme. The orange and the blue really create this visual pop. Okay, very kind of a very Swiss feel or um, Blue Note feel here with this white text and this red saturated image and lots of black. I love this design, very sophisticated, where you have the white text that suddenly turns to black when it's on the lighter part of the image. You can see that there's actually not pure white here, except for when you get to these letters. There's a lot of kind of muted grays, and then just they did a beautiful job with that title. Another example of kind of using these little graphics, a monochromatic image that's been kind of saturated or intensely saturated with one color, and then a graphics added, and then kind of a second color placed in for contrast. Love this one. Love how the text is kind of going down the form here. Here's one where the text kind of surrounds it. They're kind of bleeding it to the edge and then framing it in, making it feel almost tight and constrained. I love the J's here. The scale of the J's is just making you concentrate on what a beautiful shape they are. And then you have the image, the black and white image. There's a real subtle color palette going on with the greens and the kind of off-white, dark black. Okay, simple, communicates the message. Another example of that. So this is kind of abstracted. So you could see how this would be maybe a more complicated illustration that gets abstracted and abstracted until it's kind of the bare essentials of what the message is here. And then I love this playful text down here. So notice how they kind of individually moved and shuffled each word. So they're still very organized on this in this kind of block here, this rectangular shape. But they've been really playful in the placement. They've kind of taken the letters and changed each letter individually, move them up, move them down. The kerning's been played with, the space between the words and the space between each individual letter. Another example of just a really fun illustration where this text almost feels like the music. Love this one with the scale of it's John Coltrane, and you can see how they're really fitting in so much information here, but they're using that large word here that feels like jazz to me as their main graphic. Clever. This is Secret History Presents the Dirty Lungs CD release party, made to look like a cigarette box. Here's the handsome furs. Kind of looks like a lithograph print. Love this one for Heineken. What they probably did is they probably repeated a lot of these people in the audience here. So they might have had, 3 or 4 groups. So I could actually see this guy is the same as this guy, is the same as this guy. So they probably just kind of kept photoshopping it so to give this crowd more energy. This is Ladytron, and you can really see how sophisticated these letters are. Very elegant, sophisticated, matching the mood of the music. Liz Phair. Instant Litter. Weird Al Yankovic. I love how organic this is, and just the color palette is great. Conway Twitty. Beautiful illustration with this text really kind of working with the flow of the graphic, becoming almost part of the graphic.